Tovim. He says he'll give tzedakah, he'll give ma'asim, Hashem says him. Comes the Rabbi says like this, E Efsha. We know the Rabbi, he used very strong words here. He says, E Efsha, Zeo Shibish Gadol. There's a tremendous mistake that the Rambam's saying. Sharei Dava Zeh Mutter Umutterhu. Making personal simanim and basing one's decision on these simanim, says the Rabbi, that's 100% mutter. Ve'ulai hitiu haloshin. Could be the Rambam made a mistake in the Gemara in Chulun when the Gemara said Kol Nachash Eina Keliezer Kiyonis and Eina Nachash Hu Savar Shalin Isser Amar. The Rambam's learning the Gemara saying that regarding an Isser, that Eliezer was over an Isser of Nachash. But says the Rabbi, which we're going to see soon what the Rabbi means, but says the Rabbi, that's not what the Gemara means. The Gemara doesn't mean that Eliezer was over an Isser. What the Gemara means is that if the Simon's like Eliezer, you could rely on it. But if the Simon's not like Eliezer, there's no point in relying on that Simon. But not that he's in violation of Lois Nachashu. It's rights to Rabbi, and how can you say such a thing? How can you talk about such tzaddikim like Eliezer and Yonasan ben Shul, that Avera Zureh did this Avera? He says, if Eliezer would be here, he tells the Rambam, Maski Tuki Denur Liape, he'll take a ball of fire, La'ape, and smack you right in the face. The Rabbi tells the Rambam, how can you write like this? The emes is, this lashon, this terminology that the Rabbi is using is the Gemara in Brachos. The Gemara in Brachos says, Ha'im is Shema Shema, a person who says Shema, Shtei Pamim, it's also. He's not allowed to say Shema twice. Person, even though he wants to have kavanah, he can only say Shema one time. Because it looks like if he says it twice, there's Shtei Rishuyas. It's effective Gemara, why the Shtei Rishuyas? You know why he's saying Shema twice? Maybe the first time he didn't have kavanah. So the Gemara asks, you tell me maybe he didn't have kavanah, that's why he's saying Shema a second time? The Gemara uses the same lashon. Inu maski chuki denoyer liape. What do you mean? The guy didn't have kavanah. Take a ball of fire, stick and hit him over the head. There's no excuse not to have kavanah. So the Rabbi is using such a strong terminology, such a strong lashon against the Rambam, that if they would be here today, they would give you over the head. You know, it reminds me of a fascinating story that Reb Moshe, the biography of the Reb Moshe Feinstein in the Igris Moshe. They bring down an amazing story. They bring down a tremendous ma'aser. When Reb Moshe became the Rav in Luban, let's make the cheshbon for a second. He became the Rav in Luban in the year Taf Reish Pei Beis. That's 96 years ago. Reb Moshe lived from 1895 to 1986. So he was about 26, 27 years old when the story happened. He's the Rav in Luban, and there's one of the Balabatim there. Really, what he's doing here in the biography, he's talking about, he's writing how the people in Luban, how chashuv they were. Even the Balabatim of the shul, how special they were. He says, what happened? One of the Balabatim got sick. V'nafal mishkov b'min chayli muzar. One of the Balabatim got sick, but it wasn't a regular sickness. His whole entire tongue began to swell. And as he was holding on his deathbed, Takaf Halom, as he was holding by his deathbed, Rabbeinu Bolavakri and Moshe came to visit him. When the Chayla sees that Moshe come into the room, he sends everybody outside. Bikesh HaChayla Lahitzi Kolish Me'alav. So it's only the Goises, or nearing the Goises, and Reb Moshe. And he turns to Moshe and he tells him, I know why I got sick. What happened? He says like this. Last week, Shua Koidim in Parshas Vayero, I had a tremendous kasha. Keitzad zachu b'noi sloit shah Mashiach yeh mitzitzeim. How's it possible that Mashiach came from b'noi sloit? They didn't even have the embarrassment to name the kids Moav. They're disclosing to everybody, they're telling the world that the way they had a child is by living with their father. How could they do such a thing? He said, I spoke b'derech b'zoyin. I didn't speak in a nice way about the b'noi sloit. He was all, how could they do that? Hide it at least. You did it. The whole world doesn't have to know. He says like this, that night, I had a dream. Two elderly women came. The head and face were covered. When they tell me in the middle of my sleep, let truth be told that a b'noi sloit themselves. This is in the Igris Moshe, in the biography, on page 15. We heard you what your complaint was upstairs. So we came down here to answer your claim. And they told him like this. They said that being that we were saved b'derech nes, we were the only people in Tzedom that were saved, we could have told people and they would have believed us. We're from the family of Avraham Avinu. They would have believed us that the children that we gave birth to, Amen and Moav, were conceived from the Shechina itself. And we were afraid that a new religion is going to start, Kederech Noitzu, like Christianity. and therefore to save that there shouldn't be a new religion, there shouldn't be a Chil Hashem to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we went ahead and we mavaz ourselves for the covenant of the Rebbeinu Shalom, and we called them Mayav, that no one should ever come and say this child is born from the Shechina, because it's a klalu that if a child is born, Loidia Shekasher Isha Misaberes, Yesh Levlad Tomen Av, there's always a father. He finishes the story, concludes, and that's why they was Zechet to Mashiach. That's the reason why he says, V'zezachav Yetzem Mashiach Hamiti. And they told him what a tremendous chet he did, that he spoke of them b'derech b'zoyon, and therefore he's going to get the same punishment as the Meraglim got. Shumida Kenegis Midas HaMeraglim. He finishes the story. The Sirav Harosh Al-Akir returns to the wall and he dies. Comes the Ravid says to the Rambam, Ilu, if Eliezer would be here, you better be careful, because if Eliezer would be here, he would give you over the head. How do you say Eliezer did an Aveir? So what's the pshat? What's the pshat in the Ravid? The Ravid is saying, not only is he saying that Eliezer didn't do an Aveira, the Ravid is saying that it's mutter for a person to go ahead, make a simon, and rely on the simon. He says, Dav is a mutter, and he says even more than the Ran. The Ran says the simon has to make sense. The Ravid says even if the simon doesn't make sense, there's no Isanachash. What's the pshat in the Ravid? It's a Pel of the Ravid. And he goes so against the Rambam. The Rambam is much like the Rambam from the Gemara. What's the pshat? Oh, it's late. What do we do? Keep going? Sure, okay, go ahead. We'll cut the second, or whatever. We'll finish this and... I started late also. Listen to a Radak. If the clock stops. Listen to a Radak of David ben Yosef Kimchi from the Rishonim, one of the Rishonim, 1160 to 1235. He lived in Provence in France. And the Radak started with the Rambam. When there were so many against the Rambam, the Radak was in favor of the Rambam. Comes the Radak says like this, a beautiful pshat, and this is what the Ravid means, and it fits in beautifully. I'm going to walk out tonight with 4 shittas on what Loisanakishu is, and then we're going to go back to the story of the Chassam Sofer, the Chazon Ish, the Stipler, and the Pshach, and I think everything's going to come together. Comes the Radak, and the Radak says like this, V'ayita Yisrael ma'ashlim tzibidivei Chazal, Bali Adei Sarois, the people of the world, the pagans, the one who worship idolatry, v'kavuim chayku minig aleim v'choshrim kihem amativim v'amariyim zehu shasra Torah. This that we say there's an Isra of Nichesh, that's only superstitions that people are keveya, the goyim are keveya, as a chayk kiyadua. A black cat pisses, it means this. If this happens, it's a chayk kiyadua, you should know, you walk under a ladder, this is going to happen. A deer pisses you, this is going to happen. Nafal pita miyada, this is going to happen. But if a person wants to go ahead and make his own siman, person decides, I want to make my own simon. Says the Radak, but Avalim Yirtza Adam Lasis Maisa. The Yasa Dover Echad La'oisul Simon La'maisa Hu Kidei L'chazik Libar U'la'oiver Libar L'dover Ahu. He wants to give himself a boost. He wants to machazik himself to do the job, and he makes himself for a simon. He wants to flip a coin or whatever he wants to do. Zeh Adav Mutter. Ki'ilu Oisim Rabbi Dover Azel Eliezer v'Yoinisim L'Hoyoisim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If Eliezer and Yoinisim and Shol would have been doing an Isser, Hashem never would have helped them. So the mere fact alone that HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered them, he followed, he went with the sign. That in and of itself shows you there's no problem making siman. When is there an Isser? That's if it's a chayk hayidua. There's a chayk hayidua from the superstitions, the one who make up these things. It makes no sense whatsoever. You see this, you see nafal pita b'yadi, that's a problem. Person makes up his own personal sin, what's wrong with that? Even if it doesn't make sense. And you know what the Gemara means? The Gemara means like this. Kol nachash, she'enoi keliezer v'yonisim and shol, meaning, that's only a simon that a person makes in the future. A person says that if kach v'kach happens, the ferry comes. If the ferry comes, it should be a simon HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the journey is going to be successful. Zok the Radak, which is the Ravid's pshat, zeh mutter mutteru. If it's something based on the past, since this happened, since let's say the ferry came at 2 o'clock, it means I'm going to be successful. That's not a nisanachash, because that's not chayk hayidua. I made it up myself. So it's not chayk hayidua. I didn't do it myself. Flip the coin. But it's not a right that it's a simon. The only time that you could base that it's really divine, the special hashgacha pratis for the simon, is only when it's a simon that you're creating in the future. The isser nachash you don't have. The only time you have the isser, that's only if it's a chayk hayidua. It's what the goyim make, the chayk hayidua, the superstitions that they claim kach. But a person makes up his own personal simanim, it's never usher. If it's something in the past, Zok the Rabbi, there's nothing to gain because it's not going to be a simon. But if it's something in the future, like Eliezer did, or something like Yonis and Shol, he made a simon in the future, Zok the Rabbi, that's mutter when you can even rely on the simon. So Kol Nachash Eni Kol Eliezer is not an Isser. It's telling you when you can rely on the simon, when it's a good idea to rely on the simon, or when you're just wasting your time. So Kol Nachash Eni Kol Eliezer, Yonis and Shol, they did it right, they made the simon in the future. But if it would be a simon in the past, because at 12 o'clock, the clock fell down, so even though there's no Isser, because I made up that sign myself, but it's not a similar dover. But it's in the future, it could be a similar dover. As I learned to write. So it comes out, we so far have 3 shittas in the law of Lois Nachashu. Tosis holds it depends if you're soymech or if you're not soymech. The Ran holds that even when you're soymech on it 100%, if it makes sense, it's mutter. The Rambam, we don't know. The Kesef Mishnah wants to say the Rambam holds like the Ran. One convention is saying that the Rambam Masadul Simon, he doesn't say. The Kesef Mishnah wants to learn the Rambam the same sheet as the Ran. The Rabbi, who's the most cool of all the shittas, he says no. That if it's a personal simon, that's mutter. If it's in the future, it's a good idea to rely on it. If it's in the past, it's not going to help you, but there's no isser. Only things that's chayki you do it, the things that the Gemara lists, that's where the isser is. The last sheet is the sheet of the Torah Tamimah. The Torah Tamimah says, there's no kash from Eliezer. Eliezer said a tefillah. Hakril Lefnei Hashem, he asked the tefillah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Torah Tamimah, why are we against Leisanach Hashem? Because the Chinuch writes, if someone's going to base his decisions on superstition, he's removing the Ashkoch of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's basically making himself not into a maimon. There's nothing to do with Bari Yolam, it has to do with the simanim that I make. Over here, Eliezer said a tefillah. How can a tefillah mean that he's not a maimon? If anything, to the contrary. He's showing you that he trusts in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's asking Hashem through a tefillah, when I make the simon, I'm going to head and going to rely on the simon. So therefore, it's up to Torah Tamimah, that's why there's no Isser of Nachash, there's no superstition. So basically we have 4 shittas, how to learn Pshat in this and Nachashu. How do we paskin? How do we paskin the Shiloh? So if you look, we'll end with this. Even though maybe next week, there's a list, a small part, we'll end off next week's share. Before we start the new topic, I'll give you one more thing about the point. I'll just say we'll talk about the place more clear about making a wedding. People are makbid to make a wedding Tchilas HaChodesh because of the moon. It's a good sign. It's a good simon. It's a similar dove. The moon gets bigger and bigger. It's a right that there should be more happiness for the couple. So therefore the Ramah says they're not going to do a chasana of Tchilas HaChodesh and not Seif HaChodesh when the moon becomes smaller. So we're going to see that there are poskim who ask, why isn't there Nachash? But we'll see, we'll answer that up. It's only a similar dover, it's not really Samech Allah, but that we'll get to. Al Kapanim, how do we pass in between these 4 shittas? So if you look in Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah writes like this. Says the Ramah, Kufayin Tes, and Hilchas Moinim Mechashev, Hagah, Zok the Ramah. Yeshomer, the Adam Muta Lasei Sloi Simin, Bidava Sheyave Lasid. It's mutter for a person to make his own personal simin if it's in the future. Kimoi Sha'asa Eliezer Eved Avram or Yohaina's son. Whose sheet is this? This is the sheet of the Ravid. A person's allowed to go ahead and make his own personal simanim like Eliezer did because it was mutter, there was no problem. Who's the Makar? Says the Ramah that the Makar Adover is the David Kimchi, that's the Radah. However, V'yesh Oisrim, who are the ones who answer it? That's the Rambam. And the Ramah concludes, V'hoilech b'toim u'b'teich b'Hashem chesed yisayvevenu. Even though you have poskim the Ravid is matter person who goes with Tmimis, he has b'tochen HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he doesn't get involved in Simonim, that's the best. That's the best way how to go. So now, let's go back to the story that we presented. The story of Chassam Sofer, the Chassam Sofer, if the Chassam Sofer held that it was a good enough simon. Let's go with the Shittas Ran. According to the Ran, Yizichron don't have a shayla. Because it made sense to the Chassam Sofer from the fact that ink never spills. Now tonight, the ink spilled the moment he finished the tshuva. The Chassam Sofer felt, Avadi can be Samachan, it's a Shittas Haran, and the Kesef Mishnah learns, that's the sheet of the Rambam. The story with the Chazon Ish, same thing, you have the Ran. It's a good simon. He felt, I called the guy 3 times, he didn't come, it must be Tzarayla Dover. The story with the bean. The only question that's left is what's Pshat or Rav Shach. So I have 2 tzaddim. Either Rav Shach held that the Rambam asked all simanim, or maybe Rav Shach held it's not a sign. How can you use a sign to go against a doctor? It's ludicrous. The doctor's saying the kid needs surgery. So like Rav Chesed, like you were saying, because of the koch, the fashis, a small sign on the side of Chaim, like you mentioned, I'm sorry, we saw, like you're saying before, so it could be they're all agreeing, they're just the shaila is, what could you use as a sign, and what you can't use as a sign. Shkoyach.